All right, let's get started. So I'm Eva and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of the team at HUMIFORM and I'll be facilitating today's event. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the country which we meet today. I'm currently on the land of the Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. As we're probably not all on the same country today, if you'd like to type in the Zoom chat box if you know what country you're on, that's a great way to acknowledge the specific land on which you're conducting this meeting today. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We are really excited to be able to facilitate an event where we'll be discussing super important issues with passionate change makers and young people. Like I said, I'm a team member at HUMIFORM, and as an organisation, we aim to connect young people to their impact, their community, and the world to empower them to become active citizens and change makers. We believe young people have so much power when it comes to creating a better future for people and the planet. But being an active citizen in 2020 has been quite challenging. As we've been inside for most of the year. And I know for myself, I've found it particularly hard to get inspired or even know what types of action will be the most impactful or what even is the most accessible in this time. So that's why we're running these events. We think the world needs a little bit of inspiration during these tough times, and the issues that we're going to be discussing haven't stopped being issues during COVID. Action is still necessary in order to tackle and solve these problems. So as you all know, since you signed up for this event, today we're talking about gender equality and empowerment. So we're living in a time where we're seeing women in leadership positions like AOC in Congress in America and Jacinta Ardern in New Zealand. Many people are identifying as feminists, and gender equality is one of the goals of the United Nations. Progress has been made and it's so inspiring to see, but there is still a really long way to go, both globally and in Australia, for us to achieve gender equality. Women are still paid less than men. Women still have less opportunities as men. In 18 countries, husbands can prohibit their wives from working. In 49 countries, there are no laws against domestic violence. There is health discrimination against people who identify as non-binary. Even the effects of coronavirus have statistically been gendered, with 70% of frontline workers being women. The lockdown laws have increased gender-based violence, and women around the world are sacrificing their education for social responsibilities. So gender inequality has been a part of the systems that we live in for so long, and that's why education and taking action is so important and crucial in order to make change. So this afternoon we're going to hear three incredible change makers talking about their story and experiences taking action in the space of gender equality and empowerment. If you have any questions while they're talking, please type them in the chat box thing, and at the end we'll have a Q&A session where we'll hopefully get to as many questions as we can. As this is an event aimed at young people, we will be giving preference to the questions asked by young people, but hopefully at the end or in a few days we'll be sending out a resource page with just points from the presentation and other resources. So hopefully we'll try to address all of the questions in there. That's enough from me. I'm going to pass it over to our first speaker, Nandini from That Loud Woman. So thank you, Nandini.
Hi. Hello. Thanks, Eva. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm coming in from Wurundjeri country. And before I start my talk, I'd just like to say that if there's anything I say, like a word that doesn't make any sense to you, feel free to just type that in the chat and ask like, what does that mean? I'm just like really mindful of the age range here, and I'll try my best to define things. It's not because you're stupid, it's because of exposure, and like no one's here to judge you. So just putting that out there, but I will try my best. I want to split this talk, and I'm just looking at the time because I tend to babble. I want to split this talk in two parts, and one of them is I want to talk about That Lad Woman and how I came to be engaged with it and my struggles with it and with gender equality in general. And I also want to talk about in the second half just like intersectional feminism, because I think it's really important to share my story, but also share something that's an important takeaway in terms of learning. But hopefully you learn something in my story as well. So That Lad Woman is a media organization, and we sort of exist to platform female voices, female, trans, and non-binary voices. But sometimes we're better at female than trans and non-binary, in all honesty. So we basically do that through a few different channels. One of them is 500 Voices, and 500 Voices is like a platform that we have on Instagram where we sort of just come together and have days where people, we've got two really amazing photographers who facilitate the sessions, and they take photos of people, and people sort of come together to share their stories about different topics. So that might be about growing up as an immigrant, or bodies, or like revolutions. So different topics each time, and we sort of post them on Instagram to share people's stories. So we try to pretend it's not Humans of New York, but it's kind of like Humans of New York. Another channel that we have is our articles online, which has sort of like dried up and then started all over again throughout the years that I've been in That Lad Woman. And something that I'm a part of, which is like varying degrees of success, is called TLW Listen. And it's a podcast we started. And our goal in that podcast is to sort of like report on issues that aren't really being reported in the media. So we were really lucky to go up to Djab Wurrung land last year and talk to the people who are part of the Djab Wurrung Heritage Protection Embassy, who are currently trying to stop Major Roads Project Victoria from just ploughing through their land as part of the Western Highway expansion. So that's basically what That Lad Woman does. And I think what might be useful information for you is that my friends and I started That Lad Woman in year 12, which is probably the worst time to start an organization, but we did it anyways. And I think we did it specifically. I was debating captain, and I'd done debating like all of high school because I'm a huge nerd. And so I was able to recognize a lot of issues in the debating culture that sort of were mirrored in the classroom as well. So I went to a school that had really, really smart women. And then like a teacher would ask a question and like silence, nothing. And I know for a fact, everyone knew the answer, but nothing. And I'm like, why? So like, obviously, like I always felt really bad for the teacher. So I would put my hand up and say something about it. But like there comes a point where your teacher just does not want you to put up your hand and is hoping that someone else will. We found that like in debating culture, there was a lot of like white guys who would come up to like the debate, and they'd be like, let me tell you what I think. And like, it was usually just really bad, right? And like, we had really smart, interesting things to say, but we'd sort of be like hunched over looking at our sheets and like, you know, reading over them, and we'd be marked down for that, right? Because we just weren't as confident in what we were saying. And so I was like, this is an issue, right? And like, this isn't necessarily a groundbreaking issue. Like debating in girls' high schools isn't like, you know, solving gender equality, right? But it's good enough, and it's good enough to get started. And I think what's really cool is that That Lad Woman has evolved. So it's been like 4 years. I don't know, how old am I? And like across that time, as we've grown up, the organization has grown up with us. So we're like, you know, now we're going to make it about media because we think media is an issue, and we're not really talking about debating anymore because we're not really in high school, right? But that's an idea that has stuck with us throughout. That started as something that was quite small, quite specific to our own school, but it's something that we've been able to change across time. So like, I think the point there is like, you can start with anything you see around you. You know, you can just run like a super informal like campaign about like body image, right? Just for like, you know, your friends. But like that can change into something so much bigger as you pick up the skills. So I think what I want to talk about is three things. And I made an alliteration because I'm kind of lame like that. And it's fear, failure, and friendship. And I think the first two are things that I really struggled with. So the first one is fear. And I think like to give you an example, like when Eva approached me about this event, I was like, I can't do this, right? Like I'm a debater, I should be able to talk, right? And she was like, you know, talk about activism. And I'm like, I'm not an activist. And I'm like, no one wants to listen to what I have to say. And I feel like everything that I've done has actually been punctuated by a lot of fear. And everyone's like, how can that be? Because you seem really confident. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I always have to work through my fear, right? I was very scared to start That Loud Woman. Every time That Loud Woman just sort of died a little bit and then we had to start it up again, I sort of wish that it would go away so I didn't have to deal with it and have to like apply myself to it. I was like, dang it, like I'm still a part of this gender equality organization and now I have to do things for it. Like this is so stressful. How am I going to put myself out there all over again, right? And like putting yourself out there is really hard. And I think it's really hard when you're a woman and you're gendered to sort of grow up and think like, you know, have less confidence in yourself, not be like those white debating guys who just get up and are like, oh my God, what I have to say is the bomb. And it's really not, you know. But I think like the takeaway for me there is like, I don't know as yet how to get away from that fear and how to like avoid it altogether. But what I do know is to sort of listen to the voice in my head who says like, I'm probably not good enough for this. You should choose someone else. And just sort of like move on and be like, I think that that might not be true. And then just like let myself and force myself to do the thing anyways. Like That Loud Woman is still here. And it's sort of really stressful. But I've tried to stop that fear off it and putting myself out there and stop that from changing my actions. And that's really hard. So I wanted to validate fear. It's okay. The second thing I want to talk about, and I'm running out of time, I just realized that, is failure. And I think I always thought that like I was going to go out and like solve the world's problems, right? Like everything, I can do it. Because I'm smart like that, but that's not the case, right? And so, and you know, even as something like That Loud Woman, which I should be able to have so much more control over, I don't. Like I see all these things that I want it to be, and it isn't what I want it to be, right? There's so much more I want to achieve, and it falls short of that, right? And, you know, I tend to just take that on myself, and I'm like, it's because I'm a very stupid person, right? It must be that. But it's not, right? It's like baby steps. And it's not going to necessarily work out for you how you want it to work out, because when you're in a system that doesn't want equality to happen, it's not going to be that easy for you to achieve something like equality, right? And it's okay to fail, right? Like I feel like a huge failure for That Loud Woman, and people are like, no, you're not. And I'm like, but you're wrong. But that's okay. I ignore that voice and I move on, and I'm like, I can do it. And the last thing I want to talk about is friendship. And I think the only way I can really do that is because I've got a really strong support network and a really good community who can be like, you are wrong, you are better than what you think you are. And I have two friends who came today. Like, I don't know why. I was like, you don't need to come to this. And they're like, I'm going to support you anyways, right? Like, that's what counts. There are people out there who have just been like, listen to my problems, and then that's good enough. And then I suddenly feel like I can do what I want. And I find that in That Loud Woman, like, you know, I might not have made an independent organization, it's like this cool ass startup, but what I have been able to do is like help some of my friends feel a little bit better about themselves and feel like they can actually do what they want to do. And as someone who's like 20, who probably can't solve gender equality as yet, that's kind of good enough for the moment, as long as I'm still trying, right? So that's a little bit about my story. I wanted to talk about intersectional feminism just a little bit, and not to give you like textbook definitions, because I probably can't do that. And I realize now I should have just Googled history a little bit more, but I didn't. What I want to talk about very, very quickly, because I've got 1 minute to go, is basically that intersectional feminism is looking at like a situation and understanding that the divisions within that situation aren't just because of gender inequality. right? Like there's so much more that comes to, there's so many more social hierarchies that exist, like divisions based on race, like divisions based on whether you're the colonized or the colonizer, like divisions based on class, or, you know, even within something like gender, divisions based on like your sexual orientation, right? Or like the gender you've chosen to be. So intersectional feminism is a recognition that feminism can't just stop with like women's issues. It has to look at like immigrant women's issues, or brown women's, or like black women's issues, or like women who are at the bottom of the class hierarchies issues. And the point of that, I think what I really want to just emphasize is that's not like a point of division. That's not to say that like one subgroup suddenly matters more or less than the other, or that like, you know, white women should stop talking because it's all about black women, right? It's more that you need to recognize that there's so much more solidarity out there, and that you need to understand how what you're doing can be open to more people and can sort of like encompass all these other social hierarchies to sort of like try and bring them down as well. It's not about me adding up how many like privilege points I have and comparing them to your privilege points because I'm a brown immigrant woman, therefore I must be more oppressed than you. It's not about that. It's about making sure everyone is more open and that there are spaces for people who are likely to be left out because privilege exists on many different axes. And I think that's probably all the time I have. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Amazing. I think we can all agree that in your 10 minutes of talking, you have inspired and empowered everyone that's listening today and will listen to this speech. So thank you so much for everything that you shared. It's so valuable. We'll do questions at the end just because we want to get through all the speakers and make sure there's enough time and everything. So I'm going to pass on to the second speaker, Lydia from Chalk Circle.
Hey, so yeah, I'm Lydia. I'm from Chalk Circle. Thank you so much, Nandini. That was great, amazing. I have a lot of smiles. I think my face is already sore from smiling so much. I also want to say a big thank you to Eva and to HUMIFORM for hosting this event and for letting us, me and Ollie, also from Chalk Circle, speak. I'm really excited. So Chalk Circle is a volunteer organisation. We educate around gender roles and gender issues. And I started volunteering at Chalk Circle because as a non-binary person, I really believe in gender equality. We try and create conversations. That's a really big part of our organisation. And like for many in lockdown, it's been really hard for us. But we've created heaps of social media content, hung out on Zoom. We actually played trivia the other night. That was really fun. And most importantly, we have created some amazing programs. So one of these programs is called Dinner Table Activism, where we host virtual dinners, giving people tools to have tough conversations about gender. So I'm gonna do a few exercises from the program, and I hope you're all keen to do a little bit of participation. Just a little, not too much, and I promise it's not scary. So firstly, what is gender? I mean, so when someone is born into the world, when they come out kicking and screaming and there's blood everywhere, you know, they're assigned a sex based on their biological characteristics, their chromosomes, their genitalia, and their hormones. They're either assigned female, male, or intersex. So people who are intersex have a combination of female and male characteristics, and they actually make up 1.7 to 4% of the population, which is about the same amount of redheads. So it's pretty common. So people are then usually assigned gender based on their sex. So if someone has a penis, they are usually assigned as a boy. If someone has a vagina, they're usually assigned as a girl. Yet, not everyone identifies as girls and boys. People might identify as non-binary, which means they might identify as neither. Or they might identify as something completely else. And that's totally okay. It's up to that person how they identify, no one else. And that's a big thing that we believe at Chalk Circle. Yet there are heaps of expectations that come with someone based on their gender. We can think of these expectations as stereotypes, right? Can I get a round of clapping emojis if people know what a stereotype is? Yeah, Maddie, thank you, Maria, Millie. Yeah, incredible. So about, I think, everyone nearly. Great. So would anyone like to give me a definition? I'm going to put you on the spot. You can type it into the chat or you can just unmute yourself. Anyone?
Like the expectations that society puts on anything pretty much.
Yes. Thank you, Harper. Can we get a round of clapping for Harper? Because she did an amazing job. Exactly. So it's expectations from the outside. It's what other people expect of us. It's a fixed idea of what someone is based on a widely held belief, often a very narrow idea. So we're going to do another little activity, and on the count of 3, so in a second, I'm going to get everyone to write in the chat a stereotypical word they associate with girl. So not yet. In 3 counts, you're all thinking right now, so stereotypical words with girl, like associated with girl. So 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, I love seeing the Zoom storm. We call it a Zoom storm. It's the greatest. Wow, there's so many. Okay, I'm going to read some out. So weak, emotional, gentle, pretty, dress, pink, weak, dainty, throws like, love that. Pink, pretty, pink, less. Oh, less. That is, there's a lot of pinks. Really good. Now I'm going to do it for boy. So in 3 seconds, I'm going to do the same for boy. So stereotypical words associated with boy. So 3, 2, 1. Whew. Now let's see. We've got strong, muscle, tough, a leader, strong, loud, blue, tough, serious, strong, blue, brave, less emotional, leader. Interesting also, there's more words. So it was easier. I think that's a first thing that's really interesting to associate. So incredible job, everyone. And if we were naughty, interesting. If we were to think about these girls and boys, they would be like a very particular type of gender, a very particular type of person. I'm going to tell you a little story. So researchers take a newborn baby, they dress it in yellow, they tell participants that it is a boy or a girl. When baby X is introduced as a girl, people say she is delicate, soft, vulnerable, weak, quiet. When people are told that baby X is a boy, something strange happens. They say a completely different set of words. They call him tough, brave, angry, strong, and loud. Yet it's the same baby. So it's very interesting how we associate, what we associate even with just a gender. So if we think back to the girls and boys that we created, this leaves out a lot of different things. These stereotypes don't account for the diversity we see in the world. They don't account for me. They don't account for people of different genders, people with disabilities, people of different backgrounds, cultures, people with different tastes and styles. I mean, no one would want to be shamed for what they wear, right? We would never want to do that. But why do we still find it strange that a boy wants to wear a dress? At Chalk Circle, we think it's important to be able to see and understand how stereotypes are present in society and social media. Exactly, Hannah, society. So we have a useful tool to help us do this. It's called a gender lens. So when our vision is blurry, we use glasses to help us see, right? In the same way, a gender lens acts like a pair of glasses. We look through a gender lens. We are better able to see gender. A gender lens is a tool we apply to identify, describe, and understand gender and its impacts upon our world. Nice, Maddie. I can see that you're just, there you go. You got your gender lens on. So can everyone get their phones out or like get a new tab? And I want you to all Google boys' books. And if you do that and just tell me what you see, you can write in the chat if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Nice. Fantasy, adventure books, lightning. What colors do you see? Blue? Oh, that's good. Yep. Green? Yep. Red, black, red. Men on the covers, red, blue, orange. Yeah. So we kind of get the idea. Holes and Lightning Thief. Yeah, I've read both. Exactly. I've also read them as well. So what about girls' books? If you type in Google girls' books. More warm colors. Pink, purples, flowers. Yeah, flowers, big one. Pink everywhere. Books about fashion. We all love fashion, right? And princesses. I absolutely love princesses. And soft colors. Books, yeah. Flowery dresses, pink, purple, and blue. Okay, so we all like pink, purple, and blue? Is that it? Do we? No. So if we all have a better vision and we can see gender stereotypes, then we can start to understand that these stereotypes are only boxes. And we are not shaped like boxes, but humans don't fit into boxes. So whenever you're going on TikTok or Instagram, on the internet, or even just engaging with the world, it's important to have this lens on, have these glasses on, like Maddie had before. By having this pair of glasses, we can start to see how gender and gender stereotypes are playing a part in our world. Once we understand this, we can start to see people for people and that they are far more complex and diverse than these stereotypes make them out to be. Because gender stereotypes aren't just a curious way of looking at the world, they can be harmful. I mean, who wants to be laughed at for wearing a dress? Thank you, everyone, for your participation. I'm just going to do that because you were all really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. That was so great. Yeah, when you start to realize how gendered the world is, you can really start to understand that there is so much action that needs to be taken. Even how we speak, and especially leading up to Christmas, I think if you start looking at all of the advertising and stuff like that, that's going to be shoved in our faces, you'll start to see just how gendered the world is. All right, last speaker, Ollie, also from Chalk Circle.
Hi everyone, thank you for that, Lydia and Nandini. That was really great. Tough, big shoes to fill. So, so yeah. Firstly, I guess thanks everyone for being here. It's really good to see so many young people engaged and ready to fight, and yeah, willing to, make things better, hopefully, in the world. So good job everyone for turning up. I think that in itself is a really great thing. So good job. So yeah, my name's Ollie. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm gay. So today I'm going to be talking about a few things. Firstly, the role of men in feminism. and then some ways that you can take action through your words. So firstly, I just wanted to talk about my relationship with gender equality a little bit. So I started volunteering at Chalk Circle because, like all of you, I wanted to help create change. People often think that feminism is all about women, but feminism is for everybody. And I think it's really important for myself and other boys to have an active role in the fight for equality. So I'm a man, but I'm not just any man, I'm a cisgender man. Now, maybe some of you have heard that word before, maybe you haven't, but does anyone know what cisgender means? You can either write it in the chat or speak if you want. Cisgender. No? That's all right. We're here to learn. Oh, Hannah says yeah. Hannah, do you want to write in the chat what you think cisgender means? You relate with the gender you were born with. Yeah, really good job. Yeah, that's pretty spot on. Good job. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, pretty much exactly right. So yeah, cisgender simply means, if you go back to Lydia's speech, that your gender identity corresponds with the biological sex you were assigned at birth. So for example, for me, when I was born, my biological sex was male, and today I still identify with that as a man. But not everybody has these same experiences. Some people identify as a different gender from what they were assigned at birth. They might feel that their gender identity and their biological sex just don't match. Some people may identify as a male, female, neither, both, or something outside the gender binary. And these people may be transgender, gender diverse, or non-binary. And these are just a few terms that people use for their gender identity, but everybody's different. There really are no rules. Now you might be thinking, Ollie, what does it matter? All these labels are so tricky and confusing. Can't we just be ourselves without these labels? And I agree, that would be really awesome if we could do that. But in a society where people have different experiences, challenges, and privileges because of our identity, we need to look at these differences in order to understand them. So I'm sure you know this as people who care about gender equality, but in Australia and many other countries, our society is dominated by men. But not just any type of man, predominantly cisgender men, straight men, and white men. Now, when I say dominate, I don't mean in numbers, I mean dominate positions of power, which makes it easier for them to move through life. For example, in our government, cisgender men make up 70% of parliament. On average, cisgender men earn $250 more each week than women. Women, in general, are more likely to face violence and abuse. And transgender women are even more susceptible to violence. So now you can start to see why it's important to differentiate between these things when we talk about gender equality. Because cisgender men, cisgender women, transgender men, transgender women, non-binary people, and gender diverse people all face different challenges. Additionally, other factors like race, physical ability, and money also affects how people experience the world. So in order to address these issues, we need to understand how they work. So as someone who's part of the dominant group, it's really important for myself and other boys to recognize our own position. Only once have I looked at my own life can I start to understand how other people navigate through theirs and what challenges they might face. So yeah, it's really important for cisgender boys to recognize this about themselves and other people in order to help fight for gender equality. Awesome. So next, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about creating change in a really easy and impactful way, and that is through your words. So language is a really powerful thing. The words we speak in our everyday lives and conversations with our friends, family, and school peers aren't just words. They're often a reflection of our thoughts, our feelings, how we see the world, and our society. Now, can everyone remember what Lydia said just then about stereotypes? Boys and girls are stereotyped in different ways. And these gender stereotypes can be harmful and restrictive for everyone, as they limit what a person thinks they can be. People might feel shame and less than if they don't live up to these expectations. And stereotypes have real life consequences. Stereotypes about women being gentle and weak make it harder for them to gain positions of leadership in the workforce. And men who are viewed as weak if they talk about their feelings find it difficult to ask for help if they're struggling. So people often say things that enforce gender stereotypes, as we just did in that little game with Lydia. And yeah, I bet you've heard heaps in your life every day. And I think sometimes it's really tricky because in our society, they're so ingrained into the way that we speak that you don't even realize that they're there. But I think that we can and we should challenge these stereotypes when we hear them. So when somebody says something that reinforces a stereotype, you have the power to help create change by shifting attitudes. So I thought that we could look at a few different scenarios and how we can help break these stereotypes. So I've got two scenarios. So scenario one, you're just envision this in your mind, okay? Really get visual. So you're playing cricket with your friends and your friend says, don't throw like a girl. Don't throw like a girl. Now, does someone want to tell me what stereotype you think that is reinforcing? You can either type it in the chat or, yeah, Hannah says weakness. Exactly, spot on, great example, yeah. So, yeah, basically, don't throw like a girl. They're reinforcing the stereotype that girls are weak and can't throw balls. So now I want you all to tell me what you would say in this situation. So if you were there and your friend said, don't throw like a girl, would you say to your friend, option one, don't say anything, or option two, ask them what they mean? So for option one, don't say anything, use the clappy hands emoji. Or if you would say option two, ask them what they mean, use the thumbs up emoji. Let's see. Thumbs up, lots of thumbs up. I think everyone is a thumbs up. Cool, good work, thank you. So yeah, by asking them what they mean, it opens up a dialogue in a really simple way. And then you can have an easygoing chat with your friend about why the stereotype might be false and harmful. All right, let's do another one. So scenario two, you're with your sister and she says, boys don't cry. So does someone want to tell me what stereotype this is enforcing? Boys don't cry? You can either type it or you can say it if you want. Men shouldn't show emotion. Suppress their emotion. Oh, heaps. Okay, great. Boys and men have to be emotionless. Boys are stronger. Yeah, exactly. So basically when people say boys don't cry, yeah, you're saying that men can't and shouldn't express their emotions, and that's bad. So again, for that one, would you say to your sister, option one, yeah, that's right. Or option two, would you say, I'm surprised to hear you say that? So again, for option one, use the clappy hands. And for option two, use the thumbs up. Let's see what you said. Wow, lots of thumbs up. Okay, great, good job. So yeah, again, just by saying, I'm surprised to see you say that, it's a really easy and simple way to open up a conversation with your sister or your friend or whoever it is, and to really talk about what that means. So some other useful sentences or questions you could say are, what do you mean by that? I'm surprised to hear you say that, or I think that's wrong. Now, it's really important to note that speaking up can be a risky and scary thing. We don't want to get you into any trouble or into any tricky situations. So before you speak up, assess the situation. Do you know this person well? If they don't agree with what you're saying, do you think they'll react badly? You don't need to speak up right away. And if you're unsure, you can always leave it till another time. In the meantime, you can always ask your parent or your teacher or a friend for their advice. You could even wait a few days until you see them next, or you could send a text message. You could do any of those things. So challenging gender stereotypes is a really easy, everyday way you can fight for gender equality. We don't often see language as a type of action. You probably think creating change is about lobbying, protesting, signing petitions about big national governmental issues. But language is a really powerful tool for change. Attitudes are reinforced through our everyday conversations, and by challenging stereotypes, you're creating conversations with people to see things from a new perspective. By doing this, hopefully we can create a shift in the way people think about gender. Conversations make people think, and when they reflect on their actions, how they exist, what they say, that's how change happens. So the next time somebody says something stereotypical about gender, challenge them. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ollie. That was so great. Yeah, challenging people's opinions is such a great way to take action, and especially when we can't leave our house, it's a great way to feel like you're taking action during a global pandemic. So yeah, thank you so much, Ollie. That was so valuable. And thank you to all the speakers for speaking. It was so great to hear all of your stories and all of your advice on taking action for gender equality and empowerment. So we do have a few questions already here from the registration forms, but I'll start with them. But if anyone wants to ask any more questions, please put them in the chat and hopefully we'll get to them. For the first question, I might ask Nandini. Sam has asked, I would like to know why women don't get paid as much as men do. Which is a very complex question, so just try your best.
I think there are situations in which like women for exactly the same position don't get paid as much as men do, and that's literally because people allow it to happen, right? Like the reality is that an organization comes in or a boss comes in and they're like, I'm allowed to pay a woman less because for some strange reason, some magical reason, I think that her work is less valuable than anyone else's work. And because no one's going to call me out on it, I'm going to do it, right? I think another reason why women are paid less, not necessarily for exactly the same job, it might be because they're in different sectors and those specific jobs within that sector might not be paid as much. So you see a lot of women in things like the creative industries or healthcare, and you see men who are likelier to go into like finance or stuff that's more higher paying. So in comparison across the kinds of jobs that women are doing, they tend less well-paid jobs, or else they're paid less because of the positions they're in within their jobs. So in the same organization, in that organization, they might be in lower positions, and there are lots of reasons like, you know, masculinity that stop them from progressing up into higher positions where there might be like a CEO or like a senior manager who might actually be paid more money. And the last thing is like across a woman's lifetime, she's less likely to be paid as much because she's doing things like taking maternity leave to have kids or taking time off when those kids happen. So like across time, she's being paid less. You know, she might be taking more sick leave because she's doing a lot of housework. And that means that she's more tired during the day and she's less able to go to work. So there are lots of different reasons why women are paid more or less. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sure if you added all the hours that women do work around the house or any other of those roles that women are expected to do in our society, women would be the richest people in the world, honestly. Yeah, it would be a mammoth amount of money. I might ask the next question to Lydia. Evie has asked, do you think the world would be different if there were more women in power?
I think this is a great question, and I think we should look at New Zealand, because if we can see there immediately Jacinda Ardern, who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and the way that she kind of holds herself, the things that she kind of holds like important to her, like her things about childcare, or like normalizing kind of being a mother in that role. Also just normalizing being a person, I think, in a different way than we have seen in other roles. So I think it would create, from that example, I think it would create a kind of more empathetic where people kind of value emotion in the same way that they value like this idea of logic. So if we're thinking everything is about being about your brain, but actually emotions are really important within this and within any fight. I think it's just important to acknowledge that. So I think that it would be a more emotional and allowing for people to be, the more of who they are.
Great, thank you. And I think also having more women in power will show young girls that, they can be women in power too. Very inspiring. Ollie, Hannah has asked, what are your thoughts on toxic masculinity?
That's a great question. Firstly, has everyone heard that term before? Toxic masculinity? Do you know what it is, or you don't? Maybe put a thumbs up if you do. It's okay if you haven't. A few people, okay. Yeah, maybe I'll quickly just kind of say what it is. So toxic masculinity, it's kind of a phrase that's been popularized, I reckon, in like the last few years, as feminism and gender equality has kind of come more into the front of, I guess, the world and media and pop culture. And yeah, toxic masculinity, you often hear it referring to situations where men are behaving in ways that are not good. So it might be violent situations or situations where they're being, discriminating against women or homophobic or things like that. And yeah, I think toxic masculinity it kind of stems from all these ideals that we place in men, such as being loud, being tough, being sporty, being the man in the house. And it just kind of, I guess it's just kind of like the worst way that could be produced. And yeah, I think it's really good that more people are kind of aware of it happening. But yeah, toxic masculinity is bad, basically. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Ollie. Does anyone else have anything they want to say about toxic masculinity? I feel like it's quite a big topic. If anyone else has anything to add, feel free to jump in with any of the questions as well. No, we can move on to the next question. Okay, maybe to anyone really, we could start with Nandini and just go in the same order. But as a young person today, how can I promote gender equality? Hannah has asked.
I think there are like heaps of different ways you can do it, and I think like no one has quite figured out which one is the best way. So it's sort of like just like doing a bunch of things and then trying to figure out like how. Like I think on one level is, as Lydia and Ollie have said, like on an interpersonal level with all your interactions that you have every day, and like calling people out when they say things that are wrong. Or it might be like educating yourself, like coming here and trying to understand these issues that are happening. People don't recognize that it's not all just going out there and fighting and acting and calling people out. Like to be even able to do that, you have to understand what the problem is. Like you won't know it and be able to call it out otherwise, right? So like improving on your own education and watching documentaries or reading or listening to people talk, or asking questions is really useful. Or you can like join an organization like That Lad Woman or Chalk Circle and sort of like be a part of them and do what they do. Or like, I don't know, the list is like endless, I guess. Or you can form your own organizations, or you can run like little campaigns in your school and be like, you know, we're going to run a campaign where we basically analyze all the course content and see how many women are in that course content. Like, you know, if I'm doing English, how many female writers are there? And I'm going to do a little audit of that. And then I'm going to tell the teacher that they're wrong in the nicest possible way, because you don't want to piss your teacher off. So you can do small things like that, right? Like in my school, they used to just have like sticky notes on the mirror saying like, you are beautiful, which, you know, might not be that effective, or it might be super effective. So there are heaps of different ways to get involved. And also just like at your own level, like understand how gender affects you and be able to overcome issues that you might be able to recognize. Like maybe you're really fearful and feel like a failure all the time, like I do, because you're gendered to be like that, and try and figure out how you can overcome it. Maybe it's by having really strong friends around you, or learning to ignore the voices in your head. So yeah, I'm sure there's heaps. I missed out on so much, but I'm going to pass it over. Hopefully.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I love that. I think, yeah, that thing about like self-love, it's a lame thing to say, but I think that, yeah, being proud of yourself and not being confined to the gender roles and stereotypes that you've been taught to, because people are gendered in a very young age, and they're told how to be at a very, very young age, and like when they're 5, you know. And so it's like really important that you actually know the capabilities that you have, and so that you can get into a position of power where you can make change, because everyone can do that if they believe it. So yeah, I think that kind of self pat on the back and bolstering the people around you. Yeah.
Ollie, did you want to chime in at the end? You don't have to.
I could. Do we have time, or do you want another question? Or
yeah, no, quickly. That would be the last question. Go for it.
Yeah, I guess kind of tacking on to what Nandini said. I think you can really learn a lot about listening and asking questions in a sensitive way. I think yeah, that just kind of reminded me, you know, obviously as a male, I didn't understand a lot of the things that my female friends experienced in life. And there were all these little moments, for example, like how they didn't want to catch the bus at night because they were more scared and you know, they were fearful for their safety. That's just something that I never thought about, because, you know, men don't experience that. But there are all those little moments like that where, you know, I've asked questions nicely and I've listened. And I think that's a really important thing. If you don't understand something, it's just like it's a really good way just to kind of, yeah, gain some perspective about how other people might be dealing or experiencing life. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And yeah, as all three speakers said, educating others and educating yourself is such an important tool for change. And it just popped into my mind that on the resource sheet, we'll try provide some documentaries and some books and things like that that have been really helpful to all of us to grow and learn more about gender equality, and have helped us and given us a platform to then take action and be more confident with taking action, which I hope all of you will be or are at the moment, because it's such an important issue that needs people behind it. So thank you so much all for coming today. Thank you to our speakers. You've all been so fantastic and inspiring, and it's been so great. Thank you to all of the young people. Knowing that you're going to be the next leaders is just fills me with hope, and I'm sure fills everyone else with hope here. And you don't have to wait till you're leaders to take action, because right now we are changing the world for the better. Thank you to Megan, the founder of HUMIFORM. She's up there in my corner. I don't know where she is on the rest of your screens, but thank you for being always an all-round amazing human and doing such inspiring and awesome work for so many people out there. And I also want to say thank you to Solly, who is in this in the Zoom. She advertised our event so well. She told basically her whole school about it, and we want to just say a massive thank you for doing that. That means a lot to us. Like I said, we're putting together a list of resources that we will send out in the next few days. Just going to convert it into a PDF, and yeah, we'll sort of summarize the main points from today. Like I said, provide some further resources, and for the questions we didn't get to, we'll try address those in that too. And just going to plug our next event, because why not? Yeah, so if you like today's event, our next event is going to be on the 5th of November, and we're going to be focusing on climate action, which, you know, when I think of climate action, I think of Greta on the streets yelling, and that can't happen right now. So it's going to be really great to talk to, again, 3 amazing change makers from awesome organizations who are going to share their stories and also offer advice to young people out there who are wanting to take action for our planet. So again, thank you, and good luck to everyone in taking action on gender equality and empowerment.
And can we have a round of applause for Eva for doing so much of the organisation on this one? Thanks, Eva. Done an amazing job.
Could I just say something quickly? Is that all right? Just wanted to say, yeah, thank you, Eva and HUMIFORM and all the speakers for today. So fun, so great, thank you. And also, if any of the young people here were interested in more opportunities to fight for gender equality, you can follow Chalk Circle on Facebook and Instagram. It's just Chalk Circle. So yeah, if you follow us, you can see all our resources, and we've got lots of cool things coming up, which I'm sure you'll love. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Ollie. All right, everyone, enjoy your afternoon, and hopefully see you soon, and keep changing the world.